All right, Cody, stop the music. Stop the music. Thank you very much. Folks, welcome to Riell Truth. Howard Riell. No time for music today. We got problems in the Holy Land. Item from David Rubin, the former mayor of Shiloh. That's a city in Israel, I quote. On the day in which the Arabs launched terror attacks in Jerusalem, Petach Tikva, Jaffa, Samaria, Judea, Kiryat Gat, and Male Adumim, Israel's political leadership is still acting as if the Palestinian Authority is our partner for peace. The Israeli and PA military liaison committees met this morning to discuss ways of preventing an escalation, unquote. Coordinator of government activities in Judea and Samaria, Major General Yoav Mordechai, announced to Palestinian Authority media that Israel is not interested in an escalation of the security situation in Judea and Samaria, and that Israel is maintaining the status quo on the Temple Mount. Mordechai went on to pathetically assure the PA media the police had eased restrictions on PA Arab entry to the Temple Mount during the fall holiday season. No escalation? Are we really interested in maintaining the current status quo of Jews being attacked in the heart of Jerusalem and throughout the land of Israel? Has Israel's leadership forgotten who sent it to the Knesset and whose rights it needs to be protecting? The PA media and the PA military have incited the latest wave of terrorism. They are Israel's enemy, no less than Iran, and they should be treated as such. Let us be clear. No security measures will be effective in the long run until Israel's political leadership makes a political decision to destroy the Palestinian Authority. But how does one go about doing that? Number one, announce to the world that from this day onward, the Oslo Accords and the PA which it created are null and void. 2, send the IDF into every PA-controlled city in Judea and Samaria. 3, seize control and take away all their weapons. 4, destroy the Mukata, the PA headquarters in Ramallah, and seize all computers and documents which will prove their complicity in the recent terrorism. 5, assert full Israeli control over Judea and Samaria. 6, declare the Levy Report, which in 2012 proved the legal basis for Jewish sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, to be the basis for government policy in the, quote, territories. 7, pass a law demanding the expulsion of anyone found guilty of launching a terror attack against Israeli citizens. 8, declare and enable the immediate resumption of the granting of new building projects for Jews in Judea, Samaria, and Jerusalem. 9, freeze all building in any town or village from which the terror attacks have emanated. 10, extend all of the above to the Gaza region. Clearly, this would need to be done swiftly with no hesitation. It would also need to be accompanied by a massive public relations campaign, but we need not fear empty threats and UN resolutions. If we exude confidence and do not apologize for protecting Israel's right to security, to live securely in its God-given land, many will accept our message. Those who won't, don't accept our message even now as we pander to the haters and struggle to convince the world how well we look after Arab rights. Compromise and apologies won't bring security. For once, let's be strong, courageous, and defend the complete land of Israel. Unquote. Hogwash! Sorry to use strong language, but it's hogwash. And believe me, David Rubin is a man whom I respect. In fact, he was a guest on the show. He's a sharp guy. I respect him. His heart is in the right place, but he's wrong. These half measures, disarming the Arabs on Jewish land, reining in the Arabs on Jewish land, explaining to the world why we have a right to do what we want on Jewish land, it's all half measures. You can't dance at 2 weddings, and Mr. Rubin is recommending that we do. Can't work, won't work, never work, no sense even thinking about it, and here's why. As long as there are Arabs in Israel, you will continue to have terrorism, whether it's guns or bombs or knives or runaway cars running up onto the streets and running people over. It will continue forever as long as you have Arabs in Israel. And so the solution presents itself. My friends, as much as I like to think of myself as a genius, I'm not. The answer is an obvious one. The Arabs have to go. Now, Mr. Rubin gets it right when he says, act decisively and courageously and don't worry about what the world will think. Well, of course that's right. And of course I said that on this show many times. But the action that you're taking should be a solution to a problem, not just kicking a can down the road. If there are Arabs in Israel, they will continue to kill Jews. And that's why they all have to go. They all have to go. And by the way, this is not unique to the land of Israel. As long as there are Arabs in Europe, they'll continue to do what Arabs are doing in Europe every single day. And if you're not following the news, shame on you. As long as there are Arabs in Canada, they'll continue to do this. As long as there are Arabs in, wait for it, America, this will continue to happen because Muslims will not coexist with the rest of mankind. They believe God tells them not to coexist in the Quran. Fine, let them take the Quran and go back to the Middle East, because as long as they're in Israel, and as long as they're in Europe, and as long as they're here, there will be horror. At a certain point, my friends, you've just got to be a grown-up. You've got to say, look, the problem is obvious, and the solution is obvious. Put politically correct concerns aside and save human lives. If we can't do that, forget about can't, because we can. If we won't do that, then we are every bit as guilty as the Muslim thugs who are stabbing innocent men, women, and children. We've got to do it. Right and decency and compassion call upon us to do it. God Almighty calls upon us to do it, to safeguard innocent lives. And if we don't, then we don't deserve our spots here on this planet. Just that simple, my friends. If you're expecting anything more eloquent or complex, you're free to go to some other media outlet. But here on this media outlet, I speak the obvious truth. And I pose the question to my audience, why aren't you speaking the obvious truth? Why aren't you insisting that the leaders in this country and in Israel and in Europe, wherever you're listening to me, why don't you insist that they embrace the obvious solution to the problem of Islam? It is a clash of civilizations. And folks, we better win it. Because if we don't win it, I don't even want to think about what's going to happen. This is Riell Truth. We were off yesterday. Today we're back with a vengeance. Stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Green Earth. How many times have you gone into a health food store and are confused as to the many different brands and prices on the same herbal supplements? You want to buy the cheapest, but you're afraid that quality is less, so you buy the most expensive. Truth is, the cheapest may be better. Green Earth herbal supplements are all manufactured in our Wheat Ridge, Colorado plant at 4565 Kipley Street, using the highest quality herb that we source from all over the world. Our 150 different herbal supplements are the most potent and safest in America. Our guarantee is your money back, no time limit. Just return the bottle empty or full, no questions asked. So when you come to our new location, look for our new name, New Genesis Health, or call us at 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. Now this is the testimony of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 19 through 21. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution
All right, guys, welcome back to Riell Truth. Howard Riell, your humble host. Okay, not so host. Donald Trump, speaking to supporters recently, as last week, got an amazing endorsement from a woman from Colombia. That's in South or Central America, somewhere below New Jersey. That much I know. Anyway, it made all the news outlets, and for good reason. And here I want to play it for you. Here we go.
Got a call from one of the biggest reporters. Every magazine, People, by the way, People magazine, I love the paper. I didn't love the picture. I don't know. They did something with my magazine. I don't understand. I love People magazine. I love the people of People magazine. The story was done. Well, Melania looked good, Dan looked good, I look like that. I have a feeling maybe they taken the picture. They might have taken it. But I've been on. There it is. Come here. And is this the setup that I ever made before? Huh?
Let me stop the video for a second. I'm Hispanic and I'm voting for Mr. Trump. So let me talk to all the Republican weaklings, cowards, and fools out there who won't go to the toilet unless they get support from the Hispanic community here in the United States. They stay awake at night in a cold sweat. What if we don't get the Hispanic vote? Well, folks, you can relax. You're not going to get the majority of the Hispanic vote. And you can relax for a second reason, because you don't need the majority of the Hispanic vote. This woman shows that you're going to get more Hispanic vote than you thought you will. But as Ann Coulter has pointed out, Ronald Reagan got a very, very tiny percentage of the Hispanic vote and still won by the greatest margin of any presidential election ever. What Ann Coulter says is right on. The Republican candidate should be talking to the majority in America, not the minority. Not sniffing around the edges for a minority that you're not going to get anyway. Speak to the majority. That's us. Make us happy. Because when you make us happy, you're doing what's good for America and not for a little slice of the Democratic pie. Donald Trump knows that. This woman knows that. And I don't like the characterization of Hispanics anyway as automatically voting only for their specific interests. I think Hispanics are better than that. I think they want a strong and prosperous America, and that can only be found in one place. It's not going to be found anywhere in the Democratic Party, not with shrillery and not with a wingnut like Bernie Sanders. So let's listen to a little bit more what this woman has to say to and about Donald Trump. All right, guys, I'm going to stop it there, and here's why. Donald Trump just said he never met her before. It's not a setup. Well, that's a perfect segue into this next disgusting news item from the conservativetreehouse.com. During an appearance at a John Huntsman / The Hill No Labels event, a female audience member named Lauren Batchelder played the role of a female antagonist toward candidate Donald Trump. However, Ms. Batchelder is not just an average audience member. She's a paid political operative of the GOP and a paid staff member of Team Jeb Bush. Within minutes of her scripted performance at the event, the producers of CNN were quickly editing sound bites and framing a narrative. That story was pushed into the media stream within hours. CNN's Gene Moose was the delivery vehicle for the hit piece. Unquote. So here's what this means. It means you are a schmuck. And I am a schmuck. In the eyes of the news media, in the eyes of Jeb Bush. And when I say that, you have to understand. Jeb Bush is part of the machine, and the machine is part of the media. In the eyes of that political media machine, whose candidate is Jeb Bush, you are nothing. You are the ignorant, unwashed masses. And just like a cow that has to be led through a series of stalls to the slaughterhouse, you and I are being led by scripted crap like this. The woman works for Jeb Bush, and she just happens to be in an audience and send what she thinks is a gotcha question at Donald Trump. Well, I'm confident that Donald Trump can answer well any question thrown at him, but this is an example of political dirty tricks. It's a desire on the part of Jeb Bush to circumvent the American voter. After all, you don't know for whom to vote. You don't know what's right and what's wrong. So Jeb Bush is going to lie to you and fool you and maneuver you into voting for him. Well, folks, I can't think of a better reason to never vote for Jeb Bush. He's the establishment candidate. He's everything that's venal and sick and corroded in the American political system. He's the good old boy network that's already got our graves dug. Now, I don't know Lauren Batchelder. I certainly hope she leaps out of a window. The world doesn't need this. It doesn't need dirty tricks. It doesn't need spin or propaganda or flim-flam. America's hanging on by its fingernails, my friends. We need to save ourselves. We won't be saved by political cronies and good old boys like Jeb Bush and his fake audience members. It's a disgrace. I hope there's someone out there who will arrest Lauren Batchelder, who will bring Jeb Bush in for justice for crimes against the American people. Lying in a political forum should be a crime. Donald Trump doesn't lie. Doesn't have to. Doesn't need anybody's money. He's using his own money. He's not owned by anybody. He's no one's puppet. I've talked many times about political whores. He is not one. Jeb Bush is one. Which is why Jeb Bush needs to relocate to another country. Item from the BizPackReview.com, Germany. Europe's largest economy is bearing the brunt of Europe's refugee burden. The number of asylum seekers expected to pour into Germany this year to escape conflicts and poverty in their countries has soared from an estimated 750,000 to 1.5 million asylum seekers to arrive in Germany this year, The Guardian reported. Considering family structures in the Middle East, this would mean each individual from that region who's granted asylum will bring an average of 4 to 8 family members over to Germany in due course. The high number of asylum seekers runs the risk of becoming an extreme burden on the country. More than half of Germans are now scared of refugees invited to their country, according to a new local German poll. The high number of asylum seekers runs the risk of becoming an extreme burden, as already stated. Unquote. I guess you could say, oops. I don't know how you say oops in German. If you know how, call into the show and tell me. But oops. Oops. Germany decided that after torturing and murdering Jews, after the greatest Holocaust in human history, 6 million Jewish deaths on the hands of the Germans. They decided that now they're nice guys, so they're going to invite Muslims. Well, Germans are not especially nice guys. And there is such a thing as mida keneged mida. That's a Hebrew term. It means measure for measure. Tit for tat. Whatever you put out, you get back. And believe me, Germany is now getting it back in spades because Germany is now done. Germany's finished. They can spin their wheels. They can scream, Ach du Liebe. Doesn't matter. Germany's getting what it deserves. The takeaway is not for Germans. Hell with them. The takeaway is for us. Look at what's happening in Germany. Look at what's happening in other countries in Europe. And ask yourself, do I want that to happen here? Well, that's also a no-brainer. Of course you don't want that to happen here. And the next question is, what are you doing? You! What are you doing to prevent it? If the answer is nothing, then you deserve nothing more than the Germans deserve. The Germans are committing national suicide. Is that what you want? Don't you love your children? If you do, you don't want to set fire to the United States that they're going to have to live in for the next 40, 50, 60 years. You want them to live in the best country possible, right? Okay. So switch off the television. Put away the games. Get involved. Make sure that you say it. Scream it to your legislators, to your local media, that you get on the internet and say, no, we won't have here what they've got in Europe. We can't stop it. You need to get busy. You need to get angry, too. It's about time I said that. Item. From the Economic Collapse blog, why has Barack Obama airdropped 50 tons of ammunition into areas that, quote-unquote, moderate rebels in Syria supposedly control? This is essentially the equivalent of poking the Russians directly in the eye. Much of this ammunition will end up in the hands of those the Russians are attempting to bomb into oblivion. And so to Russia, it appears that we're attempting to make the job much harder. And of course, the truth is that there aren't really any moderate rebels in Syria at all. Nearly all the groups that are fighting are made up primarily of radical jihadists and or hired mercenaries. Personally, I don't see anyone over there you would call the good guys. At the end of the day, the U.S. supports just about anyone that wants to get rid of the Assad regime, and the Russians are working very hard to keep Assad in power. Just like the civil war in Ukraine, the conflict in Syria is in great danger of being transformed into a proxy war between the United States and Russia, and many fear that these conflicts could eventually be setting the stage for World War III. Unquote. My friends, we need to be thinking of World War I, not World War III. World War I? What's Riell talking about now? Well, I've talked about it here before. If you don't remember it, shame, shame, shame. What is World War I? World War I is 1,400 years old. When a guy named Muhammad told everybody that God had talked to him, and he came up with a book called the Quran and said, from now on, we're at war with the world. All you're seeing here in Syria is that war continued 14 centuries later. All you're seeing anywhere on the planet involving Muslims is World War I. It's been hot and it's been cold. Now it's hot and we don't even know we're fighting it. But we're losing it. So instead of thinking about World War III, think about World War I. And if Russia wants to bomb the crap out of Syria, that's fine with me. I figure if Syrians aren't killing each other, then they'd be killing Jews. I'd much rather they killed each other. So, whomever he is bombing in Syria, I'm delighted. Let us bomb in Syria. Let other nations bomb in Syria. Let's send Syria back to the Dark Ages. Let's not have any buildings in Syria more than 3 or 4 inches tall. Then we can stop worrying about Syria, and that leaves all the other Muslim nations in the world. World War I, my friends, now discuss while we take a commercial break. I'll be right back.
There's still hope for the area. I think it was also less.
372. And be sure to listen to the Healthy Nature Show with Linda Phillips every Tuesday at 1 p.m. And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 16. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. This is the American News Network.
All right, guys, welcome back to Riell Truth. Short and to the point. Donald Trump, Sean Hannity, Fox News, go. All right, guys, at that point, we're going to stop. But let me say this. I am distressed to hear someone like Ben Carson saying there's no point, there's no way we can possibly get rid of the illegals here in this country. Not only can we, but we must. However much it will cost pales in comparison to the cost if we don't do it. So we have to. Item from rickwells.us. These supposed refugees did not travel all the way to Germany and other places in Europe to end up stuck with only half of a handout, bad-tasting food, and slow internet. They have their standards and their expectations. These nations had better get busy making sure they're not disappointed. The strong-arm tactics of the German and other governments upon their own citizens to provide for these invaders are nothing compared to what these migrants have in store for them if they come across as being even the slightest bit stingy. They'd better shape up and change their tunes pronto, or there will be hell to pay. They might even decide to go back home, wherever that may be, and in whatever incarnation of Syria it may assume. A social pariah can only be expected to tolerate just so much substandard generosity before they inevitably snap. One man in the video, and this is a video that you see at the website, makes that very declaration, threatening retaliation. He says if Germany does not allow him to stay and tries to relocate them to a country where the free ride isn't quite as good, he'll take drastic measures, and he's serious. He'll return to Syria. It's Germany or nothing. Apparently, things aren't quite as tumultuous in Syria as stop. I'm afraid the humor here is being lost because it's kind of nuanced. The Syrian refugees are arriving in Germany. They're being fed, they're being given medical care, other things, but that's not enough. They want more, and the threat is being said out loud. If they don't get more, then Germany is going to burn. It's called biting the hand that feeds you, and it's a Muslim specialty. So again, as far as Germany is concerned, I couldn't care less. As far as America is concerned, wake up and prevent this from happening here. Item from Politico. The House on Wednesday, with little fanfare, passed legislation that would protect major donors like the Koch brothers and Tom Steyer from having to pay gift taxes on huge donations to secret money political groups. The legislation, which now heads to the Senate, is seen by fundraising operatives as removing one of the few remaining potential obstacles to unfettered big money spending by nonprofit groups registered under a section of the tax code, 501c, that allows them to shield their donors' identity. Unquote. My friends, this bill, if it became law, would be a quantum leap in the wrong direction. What we need to do is get money out of American politics. This bill, if it becomes law, would put more money into American politics, which is poison. Item from tellmenow.com. A British columnist is under fire this week for making comments on Twitter that have many liberals crying racism. Katie Hopkins, a reality star turned conservative journalist, took to Twitter yesterday to blast the Palestinian terrorists in the Gaza Strip. Palestinians busy knifing Israelis. Two-stage solution, my arse. Filthy rodents burrowing beneath Israel. Time to restart the bombing campaign, unquote, she wrote. Hopkins was referring to the extensive tunnel network built by Islamic terrorists in Israel used to transport fighters and weapons for terrorist attacks. Arab terrorists fired rockets from schools and hospitals. They brought down Israeli fire on their own people. See behind the pictures, she added 30 minutes later, unquote. My friends, it's no mystery why she was attacked by liberals. First of all, liberals are about as stupid as rock. Second of all, they always side with the bad guys. They always side with the criminals. In this case, they're siding with the Nazi Palestinian terrorist murderers, as liberals always do. I salute her courage, because these days, you know what? It takes a lot of courage to speak the truth. It really does. And that is a sad, sad commentary. We'll take a break, and then I'll be back, and I'll speak even more truth. Real Truth continues. All right, guys, I'm about to end the video. Find it on my Facebook page, Riell Truth Radio. You'll find it on YouTube. You'll find it on Tumblr. You can't help but find it. Find it, watch it again, share it, talk about it. More than anything else, act on it. Call your legislators, your congressmen, your senators. You can find out who they are on the internet. Call them up and yell at them. They work for you, and they respond to voters who are angry. So be angry and stay angry. I'll see you tomorrow. Hasta luego.